Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us right now on iTunes, please go and leave a 5-star review. You can say anything. I mean anything. And I will read it. This episode is sponsored by Cushy Dreams. I'm going to tell you about Cushy Dreams. You've heard them before if you're a listener of the show. It's a really high-quality, smokable CBD product. They specialize in CBD-rich hemp flower, aka bud, in cans and pre-roll CBD joints. It's all the benefits of CBD without getting high. These products have under 0.3% THC. It's cannabis, ships directly to you. It's legal in all 50 states.
Is that the product that you were showing me the other day?
Yes, I have it in the room.
It's so nice. It's in like a glass container.
It's basically like these like really perfect. Yeah, they're like perfectly rolled joints. It looks, smells, feels like weed, but it's not. And if you're somebody who's like sensitive to THC and you don't want to go to La La Land but still feel like calmed down, it's really, really good for that. Grown in the USA. Go to cushydreams.com, KUSHY dreams.com. Use the promo code CMP. You're going to get 20% off every order plus free shipping. Guys, what else? Oh, also we're sponsored by adamandeve.com. Go to adamandeve.com right now. Use the promo code CMP. You're going to get almost any item online for up to 50% off. Get yourself a new
best products,
vibrator, a new butt plug. Go nuts. Get yourself some vibrating panties. The website has everything plus free shipping. Get yourself something special. I know I'm rushing through these ads because we have such tremendous guests on today. To my left,
I thought your shirt said marathon sex.
No,
when you
it's
first put it on. I was like, what are you wearing?
He's a singer-songwriter.
Who put that on?
I know.
Wear that for our interview.
Marissa spent like so many DC weekend trips with me. She's like, you are have a sick mind. No, this is just a
the interviews because she posts these like sex jokes to everybody we interview, and they get so like, oh my god,
it's true. I am constantly making sexual jokes. To my far left here, I have if you've been a listener of the pod for a minute, you know him, you love him. He's a 20-year veteran Hollywood producer. So many sick creds. It's John Paul Rice over here.
Hello.
And then my fellow YouTuber, conspiracy, political coverage buddy. You know her, you love her. It's Wrist Flex.
Hey.
Yay! Producer of Loose Change and other films. I'm not sure how else to introduce you.
Just a regular person. How about that?
Just a regular person. All right.
You were the first guy that Alex Jones had as a show host.
Yeah, I worked for InfoWars. I've done a bunch of stuff, talk radio. I got my own thing going, and I'm just pushing forward, I guess.
Yeah.
You've been in it for what, like 15 years?
15 years. Hopefully a new documentary project on everything that's been going on, really involving the election day, and then whatever happens next. So I'm hoping to have a 3-part series released 3 months apart on each one. But we'll see. They're always so very, very hard to do. But obviously, there's a ton of footage. There's a ton of evidence. There's a ton of things to go over. And really, even today, we got about 2.5, 3 more weeks before the inauguration. I expect more chaos.
It's Jason Bermas. Is that how you say your name?
You got it.
Bermas?
Jason
Okay.
Expecting Chaos Bermas.
There you
Yes.
go. Expecting Chaos Bermas. So that's just really quick, everybody. If you want to follow, I'll leave that up for a couple minutes. If you want to follow everybody on Twitter. We have so much to talk about. It's right now, this is being recorded on Thursday morning. I want to, we have some themes to talk about as far as the certification and the mayor and, mainstream media coverage versus what real people are experiencing with here in DC. But we were just talking about before I hit record. Jason got some really cool. He had a really cool point of view yesterday and got some interesting coverage. So I think that might be an interesting place to start. Just what we all saw yesterday.
Sure. So I guess from my perspective, right? So from the very beginning, I was at the original march. I got there like at 8:30, and I was already surprised how many people had showed up. I was here 3 weeks ago. And it was just so much bigger than it was 3 weeks ago. Like 3 weeks ago, don't get me wrong.
I think it might have been the biggest crowd we've ever seen, even compared to the Million MAGA March.
See, I wasn't at the Million MAGA March.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But this one, I mean, look, everybody who follows my stuff knows that I'm not necessarily a Trump supporter. I take him to task when I disagree, but I'll give him credit because obviously the media has had it out for him. Obviously, all the things we've seen in this election, they're not all just fake news or disproven or debunked or the Supreme Court case didn't have any validity. No, they didn't even look at the evidence. So this is real news, and we need to cover it. And obviously, all these people think something else happened. So
yeah, because people are looking on TV, and my followers are saying, you call these people patriots? You call these people, like, you know, for America? It's like, wait a second, you have to understand why we're here and what's actually going on.
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's not a new thing. Like, Dominion's not new. Diebold's not new. This type of counting of votes, it's not one person, one vote. So it's a real issue. And plus, I want to talk to everybody from every single side. So that filled up really, really quickly. Now, I stayed in the middle because I didn't want my stuff taken away. You know, taking away backpacks and all that other stuff. But about, I'd say, a half hour into Trump's speech, you started seeing people file out. I was like, well, what's going on? But at the same time, I wanted to stick around, cover what I could, interview who I could. But I saw a lot of people filing out. And I was actually with the other, the director of Loose Change, Dylan Avery, came down, and he was filming stuff. I'm going to release a short interview with Dylan sometime today. And we were talking about it, and he's going, well, I'm getting information that they're storming the Capitol right now. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, no, I'm getting information they're storming the Capitol. Now, we were walking up with one of the groups, I guess you'd say MAGA groups, but then one street over, if you were looking down the intersection, you could see even a bigger group coming up. So Pennsylvania, Connecticut, they ended up converging probably about 3 blocks before you get to the Capitol. So Dylan, he ended up catching a train, but I was like, I'm going to go check this out, man. That's when Pat Miletich calls me, and he's like, dude, they just stormed the Capitol. They just stormed the thing, the gate, the grass. He goes, I think they're going to take it over. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, man, you need to get down here. I'm like, okay. So I start going down a little bit quicker. Now, later on, I catch somebody actually from my town, Oneonta. And now I moved from New York into Iowa. I hadn't seen this guy in months and months and months. He, when I caught up with him later, had rubber bullets that he'd been shot with. He had also been gassed because he was part of that initial push. Wow. Now, I know there's a ton of things going out there. Was it Antifa? What actually happened? Who was violent? I'm not rushing to judgment on anything that I haven't seen evidence for, but I do find it funny that when you see the people that actually got into the halls of Congress, I didn't see them anywhere else beforehand.
Yeah, they're wearing like animal skins.
I would have seen the animal skins.
You would have seen the Viking style.
And also
they were listening to Trump.
That they were wearing.
Yeah,
they were tactical. They were listening to President Trump speak because Trump was speaking while they were doing it. So were they really there for President Trump?
I just don't know how they get in, because I've seen now a little bit of footage of the initial rush, right? And I want to say I wasn't there, but I don't see them there. So if they're not there on the initial rush, how do they get in? Right. And I know that there's I was watching some interviews with 2 guys that said that they were essentially let in the doors. Now, none of them in that group got shot, like we've seen tragically with this other instance with this girl. When I get there, they're clear past the lawn. They've climbed up. The bleachers are starting to fill up. Now, people are also going up the side stairwells, and there's actually still cops that are trying to stop the people going from the 2nd level to the 3rd level by macing them. So I've got some of that footage, and that's really the start of where I've seen violence. Like when I first approached, all of a sudden I heard pop, and I saw one of the gas grenades or concussion grenades go off, but I wasn't sure what it was. I'm like,
the funny part is nobody in the crowd was flinching from those. I was in the very far back. I was like, Chrissy, there's bombs. We gotta go. And nobody was moving.
I was like, I don't think those are bombs.
Like, damn, this crowd of people knows too much about like guns and like military like technology and stuff, because nobody was moving. They're like, yeah, we know what that is. It's nothing. They can't stop us. Like,
yeah, that was wild to me, because I wasn't expecting, especially the gas. You know, that you're gonna gas a bunch of people who don't have weapons that aren't being violent.
Yeah.
But it was happening. So at that point, it was just kind of just like weaseling up. And then you finally hit the wall. And there were people at the wall going, come on, pulling people up. And I'm talking about grandmas, dads, uncles.
There were a lot of old people being bold physically. Like we had climbed up at one point on top of this, like, not makeshift, but it's like a temporary construction trailer office. And some people are climbing up, and I'm like, I want to go up there. I'm going to get a really good shot of everything. And then all of a sudden I hear like clang, clang. Help! It's this old lady. She had been 70 years old, and I had dropped everything I was doing and like pulled her up.
Like a bunch of young people came to like help
handle, watching, because it was really precarious. Like it was this barricade that they put up against the wall, but the barricade would slide off the stairs because they're like these shitty, just temporary metal stairs. So somebody had to hold the barricade while someone climbed it up, like used it like a ladder. So it took a few people holding things in place to even get up on this thing. And I was like amazed I didn't see anybody hurt just just from climbing up that.
Well, that's when it starts to crowd up, right? And you're right. They were taking the barricades, they were lining them up, and they were like steps. And then you get up and they throw you
one
over.
wall, it was like perfect. I was like, God, I would like to see if I could. I'm not going to do it, but I was like, I'm going to see if I could climb that.
Well, I did. I climbed it.
It looked like it was easy. I mean, you guys.
It wasn't that bad. Like I didn't climb the stairwells, but those were pretty short and pretty up. Once you got there, I'd say that's when I was like, oh my God, they're going to fill up the bleachers, because now they were running past the cops, and I saw the cops retreating, and then they were going over to the right-hand side to kind of regroup and figure out what they were going to do. So I'm on the lower level, and that's when I see people going into the floorboards. Now I'm gonna show a bunch of people all this stuff. I'm probably gonna do like an AMA later because we'll do it raw. I haven't looked through all the footage, but he had wire cutters.
Damn.
And I'm like, this seems really odd. Like wire cutters. What? First of all, there's no PA system that's working. You can see the speakers up there, but I mean, we're talking wires. Right. Like it wasn't just like one or two. And he's starting to cut them, and I'm like, what is going on here? Wow. So then I'm seeing at the same point on the left-hand side is where the stairwell that's hidden is behind a door, and now people are going up that. So they kick in that door, okay, and now they're starting to go up into the middle. And at this point, some of the people that had gotten hit with some of the tear gas and mace, because they had the bear mace canisters there too, are coming down. So I'd say this, every time somebody was coming down and they couldn't see, I was always around somebody who's like, do you need water? And they were always yes. So like bottles of water for these people. So, you know, to me, these people are all just trying to help each other. Mm-hmm. It's when I got up the stairs, and now this is like the main point. So you have the windows on each side, but then you have a middle point that's not a window. It is an entrance. And that's where the police.
Into the chamber. Exactly.
Yeah. Into the building, into the chamber. And that is where they bottlenecked with the police. Okay. So you see people hanging out on the sides, and then I've got a ton of footage of people trying to climb over, get violent with the police. Not that the violence wasn't both ways, but the thing is, you know, I was standing next to a military guy, and he's like, listen, they can hold that point forever, because all you need is 25 guys there doing 5-minute shifts, and they're going to come around. You guys are wasting your time. At the same time, one of the windows had been smashed, but not smashed out. And I saw that. I was like, okay. And then every time somebody was trying to smash the windows, other MAGA people would tear them down and try to take them, because they're like, no, we're not violent. But this went on again and again, probably for about an hour, until somebody, I mean, I got somebody on film, and I'm not even kidding, passing a real sledgehammer up to the middle. Wow. We'll see that.
Where the hell do you get that?
Nobody
you have to.
You have traveling in on airplanes.
Talking about exactly traveling on airplanes
or trains.
Nobody's going to notice that,
yeah.
or trained or whatever. But that's premeditated.
Sledgehammer.
100%.
A sledgehammer.
When I saw the
you bring a sledgehammer to a rally, right?
Yeah.
When I saw that, I literally, and I have it on film, I go, that's attempted murder. You use that thing on a human being, and you could attempted murder. You could kill somebody.
Crush a skull, yeah.
In a heartbeat. So I see that, and I'm actually getting worried, because they're passing it towards the middle. Now, into this cavern, like I showed you that video earlier. So the same way the flag was going up as that guy was climbing, this sledgehammer is going towards the middle. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, someone is going to get really hurt with that. Luckily, whoever got up there, when it got up towards the cops, I think they handed it over to the police officers. At no point. God, and that's why, again, this notion that everybody's violent, you know, there is common sense even during the height of hysteria, right? Yeah. Somebody said, you know what? I don't want to kill somebody. And they handed it over. And obviously the police are not going to use the sledgehammer. And that's the last I saw that. Right. Now, they got a hold of bear mace. So at one point in that little hole, one of the protesters gets bear mace, and he's bear macing now inside. Now the cops not only had the bear mace canisters, but they had like the garden thing. So, you know, they're not hoses. They're usually just like straight metal lines that'll spray.
Right.
So they were taking those, and they were putting them out into the crowd, and they were spraying those. And I could kind of like breathe that in and feel it, but I wasn't getting close enough that I was getting hit with it. Then I saw the doorbusters. So the old police doorbusters. Yeah. The police doorbuster still didn't break the glass on the left-hand side. And the guy, he must have hit it 7-8 times. It was finally when they went to the lower window that I saw it bust through, and maybe 10, 15, 20 people get through. And that's when I saw people starting to come back out, that I was like, all right, now's the time to get out of here a little bit and start filming from afar, because people were starting to leave. And it was starting to get dark. We're talking about 4:30, almost 5 o'clock. And I was wondering where it was going to go. And, you know, I'll just say this. At the end of the day, they called in, you know, I was getting the the emergency text message about the curfew,
Yep.
right? That was all over the
It was
place.
like, everyone's phone. They were like, fuck you. Fuck the curfew.
And they had talked about Pence being let out. They talked about Congress going into recess but not leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was maybe less than an hour afterwards that if you were listening to the news that they were telling you they were going to reconvene. And sure enough, I sent it to you last night. They did. They reconvened and they certified Joe Biden. So, right now, listening to all the media coverage, it's hysteria. We're domestic terrorists, et cetera. First of all, I want to say I'm a journalist. I wouldn't have stormed the thing other than to cover it.
Right.
But
I think all of us too. And I don't know if this happens to you, but like I got shit just from being here. And it's like I'm just trying to cover and take videos. And I just didn't. I'm learning now this is a common thing. Like, it's like, how dare I even be here? Really? So we're not allowed to experience things for ourselves. We just have to listen to what we're told. Like,
or preach to the choir.
Right? Yeah.
Why am I preaching to the choir? I'm not here to preach to the choir. I'm trying to talk to people. I'm trying to show people another perspective. I don't like the fact that we're already having, and I tweeted this out. Somebody in Congress try to say that we're domestic terrorists.
Yes.
Because we were here, we saw it for ourselves. We're not trying to portray a certain narrative. We're all conspiracy theorists now because we saw it for our own eyes.
Yeah. And the whole war on terror, please look into it. It's the hoax before this new hoax where we're all terrorists. That's what this transhumanist, wear a mask, be a slave agenda is all about.
Submission.
If you don't wear a mask, you're a terrorist now.
Right.
Submission by force.
It's the invisible enemy that never ends, right? Now it's not, is my neighbor a terrorist sympathizer or there's some kind of domestic sleeper unit?
It's all in your head, too.
Boom.
They got it all baked into the head. They've got our fears. They've got everything.
Yeah, wait, you have a good explanation of that with this whole the spiritual warfare.
Well, and I don't want to be too esoteric about it. I just want to be in practical terms like monkey see, monkey do. Let's kind of go this way.
It's very true.
You have earlier last year when the BLM protests began, we were talking about marches, and I was there in Atlanta when I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
You have marchers going through, and then these provocateurs that were infiltrating the crowd go and start banging on CNN's building. It draws that attention and that energy away from the original intent. And what you're doing is you're summoning attention over here and also energy that, because you don't know what's on the hearts and minds of each person, even though they're united for a common cause, there also could be anger, hatred, frustration. You don't know about their childhood, whatever their inclinations are, and they get drawn away to that. In this case, what Paul Sperry confirmed was that he had an FBI contact there that said that there was a bus with Antifa that arrived. That is a fact that he established. And that's on Twitter. He put that out there. FBI thugs, they were talking about Antifa thugs. So what we're talking about here and what you're getting at is you can have these provocateurs, ones and twos, or threes or fours or how many ever, that are infiltrated into the line. And what happens is that energy gets drawn in. Other people start to imitate it. They start to go. This is how we talk about like false flags. People say, if everybody was in on it, it would be a conspiracy. It's like, no, everybody is playing their role according to what they believe and according to what they see. And so it's that illusion. Like if you have a guy who's running up against cops and he's getting thrown back by cops, he becomes sympathetic. You become sympathetic to him because he's a MAGA guy or he's one of you or the police are doing this to you. So this is the psychological tactics and the warfare that they do in every country, by the way. It's not just here in the United States. But that part of it that I watched, I saw it in BLM, I saw it with Antifa, and I'm seeing it here too. And it's this we're creatures of imitation. I mean, we really are. We talk about, how I'm independent and I'm not, it's like go out there in the middle of that lobby and start telling all these truths. And it's like, see how many people will come around you and agree with you and the ones that disagree with you or who doesn't come to your way. It's like, do you still have that opinion? They talk about this in psychological warfare or those tests, those experiments they've done on camera where they can show how easily people can switch their previous opinion because everybody else says yes.
Wow.
So these are things that...
I was thinking about that because I was thinking if this was like BLM storming the Capitol, I'd be kind of pissed. But I can sympathize with these people because like our rights are being taken away. So I was like, that's my perspective on this is I'm a little angry about like how the situation is happening right now. We're just letting our country become a sellout. So I'm kind of sympathizing with these people.
And then the other part too is that, I kind of like raised the bigger question and said, okay, the mayor knew I mean, everybody knew that this was going to be a huge event.
Yeah, they
for
announced
weeks.
it
Bigger
like,
than any other
before
event
Christmas.
before.
I think everyone's talking Jan 6.
And they also know about the schedule of the procession that was to go, timed and coordinated.
Yeah, it was always 1 p.m. meet at the Capitol. Yeah.
And what happened when that event went off? It was right in the middle of what?
Trump had delayed his speech by like an hour, so people were waiting around.
Right.
And
And
then
he was supposed to speak at 11.
Yeah.
He didn't get out there till
and
almost
so it was like a
12.
half hour, or like I think it was like a half hour into his speech, everyone started leaving.
Right.
And it was weird because we were waiting around for him. Like the
We
MAG
were
people
also freezing our
that really
asses
wanted
off.
to hear him speak were waiting for him to speak. And when he started speaking, a large group of people just started leaving
And let me say
to
this.
go to the Capitol.
I didn't see one National Guards member through the whole thing. You know,
No,
there's a lot of
me
hype
either.
around the National Guard and that they were going to be there. They weren't. Okay, so the entire time that people were storming, yes, I saw cops, but I never saw anybody in a military uniform. That didn't come later. That's being played up now by the media. And to speak to your point about the experiments, that one experiment recently that, you know, I've revisited and shown to people is you have a group of 4 people, and you talk about people going along, sitting there. Now, 3 people are in on it, 1 people aren't.
Mhm.
You've got 4 lines, and they ask the one person that doesn't know,
That's exactly right.
what line is the shortest? And most of us can comprehend what line is the shortest. However, 3 people before him say it's a different line. So you immediately see the confusion wash over his face, but he makes the decision not to go with his own senses, his eyes, and instead go with the group and choose the obviously wrong answer. That's just only one method and one tool of control. And you're talking about people going along with it. I would also say this. I've got plenty of footage of people ripping those people down
Yes.
that were trying to smash out windows and taking the batons
Yes.
from them.
Yes. Yes.
So again, with this idea that you're going to take what I would say is probably about 30, 40,000 people that converged on the Capitol itself. You know, not everybody made it from the march, but the Capitol, it's tough because I was up there, I was taking pictures, I haven't seen all the footage, but we're talking about tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
You're going to label them domestic terrorists because they're challenging an election and taking it to the house of the people. And the thing is that for me, and I've been preaching this for a few months now, we're in a situation where not only are we United States lockdown, but globally lockdown. How are we going to do that? It's not going to be DC, but if we had 500, 1,000 people from each of these groups in each state going to their local congressional building or Senate and saying, we're going to do the same thing, only we're not going to leave. And we'll just work from here until you want to end the lockdowns, end the masks. We don't need a new normal. I really believe that's the only way we're going to take this thing back.
Yeah.
If grandma starts streaming on Facebook, you know, and Uncle Joe starts streaming on Facebook and he's saying, look, I brought my laptop. We've got hotspots. This is where I'm going to work now because I can't do my business. I really think that's the only answer. And that's whoever gets inaugurated on the 21st, because Trump was unable to combat people who had authoritarian dictates like Cuomo. And instead, they have even gotten bolder, especially with this new A99 bill, which the sub-bill A416 calls for the detention of American citizens, in camps, if you are a contact, a carrier, or infected. So you don't even have to be infected with anything, not COVID, any communicable disease,
Anything.
not a pandemic, an epidemic. So again, they're moving the goalpost, and they even threw radiation in there. Now, a lot of people will say, well, are they waiting for a terrorist attack or a dirty bomb? That may be the case, or you could just go with the fact that Indian Point, one of the nuclear facilities in New York, has a leak. And now a whole town could be infected, or a carrier.
Through the water, through the food, everything.
Everything.
And this is all, and here's the thing. If you take a step back and you look at this and go, well, I don't have anything to worry about because I'm healthy and everything. You don't get to determine that.
Right.
If anything during this time that you have observed, you don't have a say in any of this.
Like, oh, Chrissy has HPV. Get her out of here. It's like, guess what?
And now to take it a
Bad for
step
you.
further, they're going to try to legally disarm everybody by saying you have to educate your children at home, which turns your home into a place of education where you're not allowed to have guns in. So technically, if you're homeschooling your children, you're not allowed to have a gun there.
Yeah, that's
and you could get arrested.
Yeah.
And yeah, they could take away your guns.
I met this military guy last night. We're talking like waiting for food, and I think he was from Texas. And it was interesting the theories he had about about how the country's going to split into two. There's going to be states seceding, like Oklahoma. He was talking about this whole area, basically, like down to Texas, whatever. And he's like, yeah, I would stay away from the whole East Coast, Maine to Florida. Who knows what's going to happen? And he's like, think about it. There are so many. He was doing the math. He's like, the math on how many actual cops there are. And then he's like, you think about retired military and cops. He's like, there are so many people out there who know how to train others. You have rednecks in all these red states. Everyone's got their guns, and they're going on a year with nothing, and they're broke and they're angry. And how well do you think it's going to go over when someone comes through and is like trying to take their guns or trying to whatever, any of this shit, force a vaccination? It's just not going to go over well. And he's like, he's did a couple tours, I think in Iraq or Afghanistan somewhere, and he was like, yeah, this really isn't going to end well. Like, but there are more of us. That was his general feeling, is like, and there are many of us who can train others. And
let's talk about the forced vaccination for a second, because I think that's important, and that gets integrated into New York. Now, New York State put it on paper over the summer, that not only did they say they were going to recommend this is the New York State Bar Association, by the way, recommend a mandatory vaccination in New York, but for the entire country, and that the 14th Amendment had actually failed when it came to public health. Now, why is this scary? Number one, it wasn't reported really anywhere nationally. People did protest in Albany. I went there one time, but I missed the first one. I actually interviewed a guy named Pete Harding yesterday who was down here. He's in that viral video where they throw the health department out in Buffalo. The sheriff's department is there with the health department, and they're like at first on the side of the health department, and then they're like, where's the warrant? And then they kick them out. So Pete has been talking about this. Kara Castronova, she's another one. And Kara actually did a march about a week ago with BLM and MAGA together. Again, no media coverage whatsoever, even in New York, against the forced vaccinations, against the lockdowns. Now, why is it important? Because they're going to push for mandatory vaccines in New York. There is no doubt in my mind. The vaccine legislation that they already have for children there, they took away the religious exemption. I have two nieces. We actually won. Me and my sister won the religious exemption, and then they took it away from us. We spent a year fighting it, won it, and then it was taken away. And all these they were trying to get my girls vaccinated up until the week we left for Iowa, still not even being in school. So they were fully remote, and they still wanted to put shots in their arm. If you don't think that's coming, read how the Biden administration may have Andrew Capo Cuomo as their attorney general. Yes. If he becomes the attorney general, then I think the scenario that you're talking about with secession and states refusing is very, very possible, if not probable. I try not to be a doomsayer, but coming out here, I met Tim Pool in person for the first time, and he's very adamant that he does believe that there will be some kind of a civil war because of not only what's going on politically, but the inflation that we're going to have to face. Now, we've had inflation forever,
right?
But
not this level.
Not like this. From some estimates, we have 66% of the current monetary supply over our history being printed this year alone.
Why is that?
Because they're giving money for nothing. They're printing it out of not that they haven't printed it out of nowhere.
In Pakistan.
But how do you give? Well, that's one thing. But how do you give people $600 extra on top of what you were making for 3 months, and then that's minuscule to what you're giving to Bezos, to what you're giving to Soros foundations, Gates foundations, all these foundations that are tax-free? They're not here to help you. They're here to be tax-free and then legally exempt from any actual crimes. Okay, and by influence. Tim Schwab has done great things on the Bill Gates Foundation. Several mainstream articles nobody else is picking up on. So once that hits, if it hits in the way that Tim thinks, like you got to pay $10 for milk, and you're not getting that $600 anymore. I really believe that this is a program to bring people into a universal basic income of slavery that comes with a ton of caveats, such as forced vaccinations, such as checkpoints, such as IDs, maybe
social credit scores.
Social credit scores.
That's what I'm dreading.
And it's really to get you used to the automation nation that Andrew Yang was telling you about, and he was big UBI. And guess what? He's running for the mayor in New York City now. Oh, I wonder if
I'm
New York.
sure he's doing that all independently for the righteousness of it all.
Yeah, right.
Not because he's been tapped or appointed or anointed. It's
It's math, bro. It's math. So again, like, it's like, you got to look beyond this thing. This guy is a billionaire. I don't know if I can curse.
Yes, please.
Billionaires don't give a fuck about you. They're never going to give a fuck about you. Okay. That's the deal. Like, if you think that billionaires fucking care about you, what are you fucking thinking? All right. It's like, it blows my mind. You think J.B. Morgan fucking cared about people? No, he cared about himself.
He created the pharmaceutical industry to treat, to make a business out of treating symptoms, not curing root causes. And all of them were into holistics. That's a fact.
Exactly. So the idea that these people are coming to save you is just over the top wrong. So once you bring in automation and you bring in a UBI and we can't see each other's faces and I can't fucking hug grandma, this is a transhumanist agenda at the end of the day. And I've been studying this, and I'm not trying to fucking scare everybody, but if you want to see it out of their own mouths, I encourage people to check out the Great Reset, the propaganda they've been putting out just the last couple of years via Agenda 2030, which it used to be, Agenda 201. I think it was 201, right?
Yeah.
I think it was 201. But then all this stuff is really just repackaged globalism and new world order nonsense. And I used to hate to use that term, but 10 years ago, 11 now, I made a film called Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, where I have over 100+ people of various prominence, from the heads of state in the United Kingdom, the United States, billionaires such as Eric Schmidt, literally using that terminology. And then you read, for those that don't know who Eric Schmidt is, founder and CEO of Google back in the day, they put him at a ceremonious thing, an Alphabet, when they were about to Me Too his ass. He's on the National Security Council. He's a steering member of Bilderberg. He's the guy that brought you Dragonfly, the censored internet in China. And that's why you think China's your enemy. No, China's the beta test. Okay. It's not the
incubator.
Yes. It's where they were able to get away with these authoritarian dictates and usher in their credit score via what they were doing in the 70s with Kissinger, Nixon, Brzezinski, and bringing them in. So back in the day when they were just totally communist and they didn't have the Levi's and the blue jeans and the Coca-Cola, we're like, no, we're going to give you a little bit of corporate communism. So it's going to look like you're a little bit freer, but at the same time, we're going to keep our authoritarian government and we're going to push you into a surveillance state.
Right.
And they did it. And there's 1.2 billion fucking people there. And that is almost 4 times the populace here. So if you don't think that's coming here now, especially with the internet censorship that we're seeing,
it's very possible.
It's happening. It's happening
right now.
Right now. Right now.
Yes. No, it's a bleak image. But this is the question. And I mean this in the sense that what has happened here reverberates throughout the world and the nation. And the question is this, okay, if we, you're watching a show on television. I'm not trying to use Q for a second, but I'm saying this is a movie. The whole, this is their reality. This is the reality that they're all committed to. And everybody on the last 4 years who's taken a look behind that curtain has seen this is all BS. It's a show. What they did last night, in my view, was commit treason. I mean, they went against the Constitution. They went against the freedoms of America while espousing all of these things. And this is what we're talking about when we get into spiritual warfare. We're talking about white magic, which is truth, and black magic, which are lies, sold as truth. And so everybody knows what they saw. And yet I'm watching people down in the lobby here and elsewhere. They're regurgitating the media again, as though you haven't seen what they've done to you for the last 4 years. And what I think this is a bigger issue. And I don't know what's going to happen. But that Trump in the American Patriot, which is the DC swamp, hates with a passion and wants to use him to make an example out of him and all of the all of the patriots across the world and the country, which what we're talking about is what? Freedom, liberty, not living under tyranny. I mean, this is just basic human rights. And they've made them racist. They've made them xenophobic, sexist, white supremacists, everything. Nazi, domestic terrorists now. So they are using all of Trump and the branding and the messaging to create that for which what they're going to do with the New World Order is they're going to put all these people down because they know that what will come as a result of this will be an insurrection. The true insurrection that's going to happen if all of this goes through is you're going to see militias. You're going to see people banding together This is not going to be uniform and even. And so my only hope is this, that there is some kind of, I said this to people a long time ago. I said, whether you believe Q and not, I said, in the final analysis, when all of this stuff goes off, and I said this a year ago without knowing the full details of what was coming. I said, you're going to be praying to God that the thing is true, because it's the only lifeline that you're going to be able to hold on to if there is something to happen.
See, I would say we got to be our own heroes, right?
Yes.
So if I've never relied on anybody, maybe because I've been disappointed again and again and again and again. You know, if I'm going to go all the way back to 9/11 and weapons of mass destruction and the original fear in the war on terror, you talked about perception and reality and what narrative they're pushing. Well, Karl Rove has talked about how we create reality.
Yes.
So it's not like we're trying to push the truth and tell you the real narrative. No, we create it. So fuck you. And then as far as Trump goes, you know, there are two things that he said that I think are extremely important. One, in a Fox interview, he was the first president since Eisenhower to acknowledge that a military-industrial complex even exists.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to give him credit on that note. And he talks about, look, I want to get out of here. The military-industrial complex does not want to get out of the Middle East. Now, in a lot of ways, he failed. You know, he ran on love the WikiLeaks, can't get enough of the WikiLeaks. You see the WikiLeaks? How about those WikiLeaks? It was his Department of Justice with Bill Barr and others, who's not your friend, that had this wrongful indictment on Assange. And we can all celebrate that they're not extraditing him. It's still the worst decision in court history, because they said basically, no, he can be charged with espionage. No, these are all valid. It's just that they've tortured him so much and he wants to commit suicide that we're not going to extradite him because he has the means to kill himself. And then they denied him bail yesterday.
Right.
Okay. So it's still a very bad precedent to set. The second thing I will say about Trump is, in the beginning of the hype surrounding the coronavirus in January of last year, when now we have those leaked cables about what it might be in China, he sat before the Davos crowd, actually gets introduced by Klaus Schwab, and gives this 30-minute speech, which I was like, holy shit, I can't believe he's saying this to people. And there was about a 2-minute segment that I played on my show over and over again because it was so hardcore, when he talks about basically to the audience how he was not going to let them control the populace and basically, you know, gaslight everybody. And it has nothing to do with freedom. It has nothing to do with prosperity of people. No, they want command and control. And I was blown away. And I'm like, this is probably the point where they're saying there's no chance we're letting this guy back in. Because, everybody out there who perceives the deep state as one thing, it's not even close. So
and it's not just here in this country. I mean, it's so connected. It's so global.
Well, look at Trump supporters. There's a reason he was able to get in, and it's not because, you know, he had the wrestling fan base or that he was a game show host or that he's been in pop culture. Those things all helped for sure. Or that he's quick-witted. You know, he's a very smart guy. Anybody out there
funny, yeah.
He is funny. People that say he's a moron, again, those are people with TDS. He's not a stupid man.
No, he is
He's not a dumb man.
I looked into his history.
Yeah, he's not dumb
Very smart guy.
at all. Like, he's a smart guy. So one of the big reasons he was able to get in, though, is that he aligned himself with the Israeli part of the deep state, right? You look at all these people he's put in: Pompeo, ultra-Zionist, sitting up there hugging like Benjamin Netanyahu just 2 months ago. Sheldon Adelson, who people do not know who he is. He is a mogul in Nevada. He is a billionaire. He is a proud Zionist, okay, pro-Israel militarily.
Go ahead.
It's after the time he had to leave.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So he funded the majority of what Trump needed to get in. All right. Now, he gave Israel everything they wanted. You know, he gave them Jerusalem as their capital. He named the Golan Heights, that oil-rich region, theirs after generations.
Right.
No authority to do that. So, and by the way, Sheldon Adelson, if you read or actually just watch the Assange trial, his private security group was the one working with the CIA to spy on Assange for years. They had a plot to kill Assange where they would poison him. And all of this came out in court. So, you know, not everything that Trump has done is great. But does he realize that? No, that's just his buddy that runs casinos. I ran casinos. You know what I mean? Like, I think that when you think that Bill Barr is your friend, and I really think he thought Bill Barr was going to deliver and Durham was going to deliver. Bill Barr is the youngest attorney general under George H.W. Bush. He is career CIA. He literally was in the CIA as he passed the bar exam to become a lawyer, okay, he wrote up the paperwork with Robert Mueller, Mr. Russiagate, in order to cover up Iran-Contra, BCCI banking scandal, and to bring over Manuel Noriega, who was our CIA asset at the time, who, by the way, never got a fair trial and was basically imprisoned indefinitely until his death. So again, be your own hero, guys. And I think that the reason they want to label us domestic terrorists after something like this, obviously they've been itching to do so, is because they see the power of the people and they don't want that spreading to localities where we could have more power.
Right, because they're trying to, even still, as they see we the people, like I say rising up, but we're not. I mean, most people that were there were just calmly walking and standing in front of the Capitol and like just waving flags and taking photos and taking videos. And like there's so many just people with funny signs. I saw a guy in a skeleton costume with a sign that says, "I voted for Biden 9 times." That's the shit I love. Those are the people I love meeting and talking to. Prometheus, the guy that jumps out of a bush every time he's pro foreskin. He could go on. He could talk an hour about why foreskins are so good.
Handpicked tropical fruit and drove it up in a car, and he was like, selling for $10
the fruit guy
each.
from Miami. He's given me, the persimmons and shit. That I feel like that's most of the people who come out, and obviously people who don't want to lose their freedoms and love this country, and they're not asking for much at all. And I think that's what they're trying to do, is Jason's saying, like, label everybody a domestic terrorist. That way the people who couldn't come out to DC, like, you try to squash feelings back
exactly
home.
You're basically saying, are you going to be with a bunch of domestic terrorists now? This is how they're it's so detailed, and it's so layered, but that's what it does. It creates these rifts, because once you identify with a label and a collective, then it falls right into the identity politic trap. And so one group is the enemy, the other is the good, virtuous ones. They're the righteous ones.
All the people that came out to try to make a change, because obviously what happened is not fair. Then we have Joe Biden that comes on Fox News last night saying, you guys, anybody that was in the Capitol yesterday, storming the Capitol, these aren't Americans. These aren't people that are for America. And the people that are watching Fox News are like, oh. And so now it's like, okay, so everybody that cares.
Yeah, we represent 75 million people. Really, there's 75 million domestic terrorists here.
They're trying to tear us apart. They're just trying in every way to separate them all.
No. This is the destruction of the American patriot. Now, here's my question. I do have to go in a second, but the question is, okay, people can ask, okay, where will we go from here? My question to you all is, and this we really have to think about, is what was the purpose of the last 4 years? And I don't think that's one answer, but the question that people should ask is, say, okay, was this all done basically to expose everyone so that Trump basically held us here so that they could come in and finish us off? Because here's my thing. It's like, if you look at the messaging, I understand all of the different things that we can disagree on and the point by point, but if you look at the general trajectory and the overall thing that this awoken in people and summoned out, and to see all of the BS, was it all just so that we could be destroyed? Because essentially what you have awoken in people is a new reality, starting with Trump in 2012 on Twitter, going to the WikiLeaks, and going to Q. And whether you believe in any of those things or not, or accept them on the merits of what your interpretation of them is, that is an awakening that has occurred in an alternative reality away from this false one. So it's like, okay, how do you reconcile the two? Well, you really can't. Right now, we have two realities that are still floating in an ether, and only one of them will win. So the question is, which one is going to win? Is it the one that we know? Does this basically say, don't believe your lying eyes? Don't believe the fact that Joe Biden didn't even win the Democratic nomination with a guy who, here's why we're here, guys. This is it. You want to go into conspiracy? Here's the facts. A guy who participated in 10 debates before a vote was cast in a primary, who the media said didn't win any of those debates, who the audience polling didn't win any of those debates, finished 4th and 5th place in 2 out of 3 contests. Suddenly, magically, because of James Clyburn echoing throughout the land, summoned all the Bernie Sanders supporters and everybody else to vote this guy in on South Carolina and Super Tuesday, when he had less than $1 million in his campaign's bank account, only spent $250,000 to $500,000 in certain markets. to advertise. That guy went on to win the primary legitimately.
Wait, as people dropped out who were polling better than him and getting more votes, such as Pete Bootlicker and Grandma Oatmeal, aka Elizabeth Warren. They just magically dropped out when they were still doing well.
Yes. Yeah. And then he picks as his vice presidential candidate a woman who did not even make it onto the ballot in Iowa, had to drop out 2 months before because she couldn't pull above 4% after Tulsi Gabbard demolished her in the second debate. I think it was the second.
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah.
So that team, that duo there, had 13 million more votes than Obama in 2008. Here's the thing. For the media, for you to have to believe that is true, you also have to believe the media said that Trump was losing support among his base, so much so that 11 million more people voted for him this time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And where do those 11, if you want to believe that's a protest vote against Biden, right? That's 11 million more people who voted against Biden than they did Hillary Clinton.
Wow.
So this is like the idea that why we're here is all because of a conspiracy, is all because it's like you have to believe the bullshit. You have to believe the lies that these people have told you. And the truth of the matter is there's many people that still do. Mm-hmm. And the only way that this can happen, the only way that the things can become whole again. And this is, to me, I know that there are many battles to be fought, but you have to have public events. What I mean by that is it's like Epstein. Just take it on this experiment. Epstein was a conspiracy theory. The elite being involved in a pedophile ring was a conspiracy. And to this day, it still is. Yep. Well, by the way, after 3 years after Weinstein, Epstein, and Maxwell, 3 years, this is a conspiracy. This is a conspiracy for anybody who's looked into it just by factual information, testimony from Virginia Guthrie. My point being is this. If all of this that we have watched is exactly the opposite, that the media is telling you the truth, is that all of these norms are here, then we have to have a public event. We have to have a public event that emotionally changes people. Because we had 4 years of public events that emotionally moved people out of the Democrat Party. Yep. The Democrat Party in 2008 was at its height. And by 2012, it was on its way down. It had lost more governorships, more state houses than ever before, like at a tune of like 1,200 seats. Wow. Okay. So in 2016, with all that they summoned with the media and all the characterization of Donald Trump, who won with 13.5 million Twitter followers on that day in November in 2016, and now at 88 million, and he lost. It's like,
it doesn't make sense.
It does. None of these things make sense. So it's like I tell people this with cognitive dissonance. If this is true, how is this true? If this is true, how is this true? You can't have two truths leaving out there. So the question becomes is what happens from here that galvanizes the American public to go beyond the establishment media and the establishment Washington, D.C.?
I'm afraid by the time these people realize it, it'll be too late. It's like they have to hit their lifestyle rock bottom. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have already hit it, but I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about that too. Like, what would it take to wake the rest of the people up who just refuse to put two and two together?
Let me go back to 2008 when they were at the height, because I think that's a great point, right? Mm-hmm. So first of all, I think that many people have just acquiesced on so many issues, especially that war on terror that initially was so important and was covered by the media. So one of the things I did when the Democratic primaries were going on is, you know what? I'm going to go back to 2008 and go to the first debate there, 2007's debate. That debate was the first YouTube debate. You had Biden. You had Kucinich on there. Kucinich and Gravel being the only real people. Right. But every single one of them, including Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, who was standing up, all had a plan to get us out of Iraq. All had a plan to get us out of Gitmo. 90% of the questions being asked, which they actually let citizens ask via YouTube, were, how are we getting out of this war? How are we doing this? The people that were marching with me and didn't consider me a conspiracy theorist in 2006, 7, and 8 were people like Code Pink, very, very left organizations. Right. And then everything flipped on its head when you had this very well-spoken black man come out of the state Senate, okay? He was a senator for less than a term. He was literally at that time I mean, they made him the keynote speaker in 2004 before he had even won his first Senate seat.
Even started talking about how this guy is going to be a great president one day. I remember
Wow.
on PBS, they said, "Oh, he'll run one day."
So he gets in there, and the first thing, and again, fake news isn't new, guys. Okay, and this whole political apparatus is not new. They said, you know what? He hasn't done anything. Nobel Peace Prize. Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
And they gave it to him. The man was literally on the cover of Rolling Stone as Jesus fucking Christmas. They had him in the clouds as God with lightning surrounding him.
Oh my God.
There was a huge propaganda campaign for that man. And what did he do? Did he get us out of the Middle East? No, that's right. Operation Timber Sycamore entrenched us into Syria, helped create ISIS. Flynn is one of the people that actually blew the whistle on that, to his credit, after being a long-time neocon.
Yeah.
That is why they went after him. And, you know, if you think it's a right-left issue, who helped the Obama administration do that? It wasn't just Joey B, when Joey B could think and he wasn't Zombie Joe. No, it was guys like John McCain as well. So, again, you have to look at this well beyond Democrat and Republican. And like you said, I think that we have to take responsibility. I think we have to reach out to people, and we have to stop acquiescing. And the war on terror is one thing, but now with these lockdowns, it's got even worse. So, brother, I think we got a lot of work to do.
Always a pleasure, and it's great.
You're coming on my show too, right? I'm gonna con you.
I
Yeah,
would love to.
next week when I get back, I'm gonna have you on.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, John. Thank
Real
you.
pleasure.
Yeah, nice seeing
Pleasure
you
to
this
meet you
weekend.
guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you all. And,
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll
Bye.
talk to you later.
All right.
Well, damn.
Damn. So much.
I feel. Is there anything we missed? I mean, like, yeah, we went on a lot of really good tangents, and
There's so much to talk about.
it's scary. Yeah, it was so funny. You were like, I was like, oh, did you actually climb up there? Like, yeah, I did. And I think that we were on the. I remember because we got a text from, I think it might be the March for Trump, whatever the automated text service was. I think it was like Ali Alexander or his group or whatever. And they're like, oh, we're meeting on the south side of the Capitol building. And then I finally looked at a map and I was like, oh, we're on the opposite side. We were like in the back, I guess, where the construction was, whatever, that other pond. And yeah, I remember we had considered, going around the building, but I really didn't see anybody stopping us from going in. And I don't know. I feel like there's so much shit to sort through. And right, I think it's like, it's good to talk about like, okay, like what is next and what kind of a public event, would help to bring everybody together.
Let's start a Facebook page.
Let's
bring everybody together.
Oh, let me just say this too about social media. If you think that you are going to be able to co-opt social media in a manner that it will actually help our cause in mass, unfortunately, that's over with. Now, 10 years ago, it wasn't. You could utilize that. Even up to 2016, you could utilize that. But as soon as you start having things taken down, you have fact checks, you have people being banned off of those platforms. And by the way, Zuckerberg, to his credit, back in 2016, when they asked him whether or not Facebook changed the election, initially he laughed at that. He said, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. People can think for themselves. It wasn't us. And then all of a sudden the pressure came on him and all these hearings, and he changed his tune like that. And just so people know, even now there's a battle with the shareholders to get him out. Soros is one of the people that wants him done.
Like, get him out of Facebook?
They want him out of Facebook for one reason or another. Maybe they feel like he's garnered too much power. Maybe they feel like he's a little bit too rogue. I've done videos on this where I show these articles and show these people. They were trying to hold shareholder meetings to possibly vote him out as the majority guy. And
yeah, I hear in the news that they're trying to at least break it down and separate it out a little bit. So it's not all power in one.
I've been hearing, every time I hear people bring up Zuckerberg, they just assume that he's in on it.
I would say he is not good at all. But like at the same time, maybe he's a little bit more rogue than someone like Jeff Bezos, who's just, hey, I'll buy the Washington Post. Sure. You know what I mean? Hey, I'll run the NSA's servers. We'll do that. That's great. Oh, Amazon? We weren't making a profit for over a decade. And then magically we're the biggest business in the world. Oh, you want us in space? Blue sky. Let's do that. Let's invest in quantum computing with Google and NASA. A lot of people are unaware of that. They think that these big tech hearings are going to help us. I hate to tell you guys, Google is the NSA. That's what NASA is. They claimed quantum supremacy in October of 2019. All right. Those programs that were going on with quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and even precursor systems like D-Wave that were used with quantum annealing, they weren't just NASA, they weren't just Google. No, it's Goldman Sachs, it's Amazon. They all invest in that. They're part of the national security apparatus. And at the end of the day, you know, our politicians do only have so much power. And then even these megaliths that we put up. I mean, Bezos looks like a goddamn Bond villain, right?
He really does.
He does. But how much power?
He's like a penis, an evil penis.
You know what? I like that. Maybe I'm going to start calling him evil EP. We'll call him EP. Those people still aren't at the top of the food chain, you know, but at the same time, they're utilized to put propaganda out to the masses. It's also like Elon Musk ain't coming to save you, you know, and this is, I would say the faction fighting. Like Elon Musk doesn't want to lose his spot as the main space guy.
It's so sad. Yeah. Like everybody's trying to hold on to someone that they think will be
hold
like
on
the
to you.
savior.
That's what
You know, like
Yeah.
I saw people walking around with like little Tesla shirts today or yesterday at the rallies, and it's just so sad. Like I'm sorry, but
Yeah, and I've heard
everyone for themselves.
Tommy G was one of the bigger conspiracy guys who was like purged from Twitter over the summer and like got a lot of heat, you know, and probably purged from everywhere else too. But he was echoing the statement of like, we've all just been switching around who's going to save us. Like, oh, Fox is great. Oh, now they're shit. Now it's Newsmax and OAN. Oh, first, and then it was, oh, Tucker Carlson is speaking the truth. Oh, then Tucker Carlson's compromised. Oh, Alex Jones is good. Oh, Alex Jones is a psyop. Oh, Parler is good.
Yeah,
oh, Parler
I
is
found
a
out
psyop.
Steve Bannon apparently was has like sex tapes from CCP and stuff.
Well, let's see about that, but I'll say this. All right, I don't know about that.
What's his name? Isaac Kappy talked about it before he died.
I met Kappy. Well, I had Kappy on my show. Like, if you
Really?
want, go watch my Kappy interview. So I would dare to say that my Kappy interview is the best interview with Isaac Kappy because it was before he totally lost it.
Is it on your
Okay.
YouTube channel?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, that one's on the We Are Change because I was working for We Are Change, and
We
it's
Are
on
Change,
the News for a Change channel, which was our secondary channel. But it's an hour-long interview, and I didn't do it live, and I integrated a lot of the evidence that we were talking about, and I honed in what he had firsthand. Outside of what is out there and whether they killed. I don't think he was killed, by the way, guys. I think that he got involved with this guy named Vegan Mikey, and I think they were shooting H and smoking meth.
Oh, wow.
And
Really?
100%. See, this is why you got to watch. He killed himself. Listen, there's police footage from cars where he drives by, where he is sitting on that intersection, and that is absolutely his body on the ground afterwards. And I don't think someone pushed him off. I mean, again, you wanna prove me wrong? Okay, I think that he had a mental lapse. He was calling me, and we were talking about how he believed that McCain was executed at Gitmo. Just so you know, again, in 2008, everybody wanted Gitmo closed down. Everybody wanted to close down, but now there was this new narrative that that's where we're taking down the deep state, right?
Yeah.
So these things about Isaac Kappy and pedophilia is real. Steve Bannon, I don't know about, but I can tell you this. Before Epstein got picked up, and in 2000, when they kept him, 2019, right?
Yeah.
In 2018, when you had the midterms, he went and met Epstein. Bannon and Epstein met. It was in the New York Post. And not only did Bannon and Epstein meet, and maybe this is going to be a cautionary tale to a lot of you guys, I had called him out on it, and I was wondering who the source was. And apparently Roger Stone was the source for that story. And how did we find out that Roger Stone was the source for that story? Luke interviewed Mike Cernovich that week. Okay. And I made Luke bring that up to Cernovich. He's like, I got Cernovich here. What should I ask him? I go, fucking ask him about Bannon. So Cernovich, and I'm not trying to, diss Cernovich too hard. I follow him. I think a lot of his work is pretty good. But Cernovich said to him, I don't know about that. I know that story came from Roger Stone, and I definitely would ask him that. The next day, Cernovich had Steve Bannon on his show for an hour. Guess what he didn't ask him? Whether or not he tried to garner favor with Epstein. And the story was basically that he was trying to garner favor with Epstein so that he would put money behind some of the Republican candidates in these things. That shows you how deep this actually
Shaking
goes.
my damn head, y'all.
Well, I'll tell you another one, and this is maybe some more behind the scenes baseball. This project that I'm trying to work on, the person that is brought it to me was asking me if I've ever met Mike. And I go, I haven't met Mike, but Mike knows who I am. And Mike does not want to associate with me. And he's like, yeah, dude, I'll introduce you. It'll be great, blah, blah, blah. And he DM'd, he put it in. And I said, hey, Mike, nice to meet you. No.
Wait, why doesn't he like you?
Who, Cernovich?
Yeah.
Cernovich is a mainline 9/11 guy. He thinks it's all terror, like it's all Muslim terror. And he actually did a stint over at InfoWars right in that period where Trump got in. Okay. And I remember, Rob Jacobson, when he was still there, putting Cernovich on the spot on the war on terror. And just, Mike was a mainline, almost like neocon type guy until, this Trump train came around. Now, as far as his Epstein work, some of it's good, some of it's questionable. His hoax documentary has excellent parts. I don't like Alan Dershowitz. You know what I mean? Like Alan, and that's another thing. You look at Trump, he was obviously innocent in the impeachment hearings. Like a half retarded dead monkey could have fucking defended him and won that case. And can you imagine if they actually said that they had the laptop that they did, right? With the Ukraine evidence, which is another mind-blowing thing. But instead, somebody like Bill Barr probably pressures him into, no, you need Dershowitz as your lawyer. He's the best.
Right.
Like, you need him. And that automatically compromises him on so many levels.
Yeah.
Even at that instance, Dershowitz is being honest. It's tough because Dershowitz was also part of the Assange legal team for a time. A lot of people don't know that. Back in like 2011, 2012, he was part of that legal team. So I just tell people this. Don't go with your own biases. You got to use your own discernment. You got to look as much information as you can from everywhere. And like you said, OAN's not going to save you. Jack Posobiec ain't your friend, guys. Like, I hate to tell you.
My mom was saying that she was surprised that Newsmax was not covering the crowds here. Like, you could not indicate how many people were here from watching Newsmax. And she was shocked by that.
Doesn't shock me too much, but you know what? Jack does some good work too. I've interacted with Jack. One of the ways I got back into this, it was 2017 at Bilderberg. He tried shouting me down with a megaphone and calling me a Hillary Clinton supporter because I wasn't on the CNN is ISIS train or that, Trump was our God. I'm like, at that time in 2017, you had 5 different people that were in the Trump administration in that meeting of less than 120 people. And you had McMaster, you had Liddell. I'm going to miss a couple of them, but the big one for me is that Peter Thiel, who was his technology advisor, he kind of turned on him in the last year and said, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. But he's a Bilderberg steering member, okay? And he's one of those guys that I think he's been a steering member now for over a decade, okay? And he is completely into technology. He presents himself as this super libertarian, like he donated big money to the 2008 Ron Paul campaign, okay? But he's also the guy that once he got outed by Gawker as gay, funded Hogan's lawsuit that eviscerated them and ended Gawker. He's that guy. So I just said, look, man, his people are in there. So you can't tell me, like, if I was here and I was there in 2012, if you told me that 5 members of the Obama administration were in there and that they're fighting the deep state in there, you're fucking full of shit. And then even the last Bilderberg meeting, which obviously didn't happen this year, first time in history, or actually there's a second time because there was a 1973 arms scandal with Prince Bernard, but second time in history. The last time, literally, it was covered by C-SPAN, which was incredible to me. So Mike Pompeo flies in, I think it was in Switzerland. Okay, so they have Mike Pompeo on his walk, flying in, looking at, and they're going on a boat to a castle where he's going to give a speech. Yeah, exactly. On a boat to a castle where he's going to give a speech on foreign policy in Iran. Guess who's already been there for a day? Our buddy Kush. Jared Kushner's already on the boat. I mean, you can watch them all on the boat, getting on. And I'm just like, these people are going to do what they want. Mike Pompeo, he's not going anywhere. And if he does, he'll just be another John Brennan, or he'll just be another Michael Hayden defending the system. And, it just speaks back to, if you want a constitutional republic, if you want your voice to be heard, it's your voice. You have to use it. You have to organize. You have to get your neighbors, your friends, and your family involved with boots on the ground. And I'm telling you, again, Joe Biden's in charge of nothing. He thinks that fucking record players are still a thing. He doesn't know. He doesn't know where he is half the time. He called somebody a fucking dog-faced pony soldier, and then he almost did it again and caught himself. He said one horse pony the other day. He called fucking Kamala Harris last week the president-elect again. This man is in charge of nothing. Okay. And
he says he's going to create a virus and step down if he can't do his job.
Yes, I know. Wow. He's like, I will fake a virus. And
like, he said it. He says it, and people don't believe it.
Why do they still let him talk?
People don't want to believe it.
Because they got to use him as a front man. But again, if there was any intellectual honesty on the right, for instance, and they wanted to go after Joe Biden, and obviously, from what we discussed, it didn't seem like they needed to because he wasn't winning anything, right? He bragged on television on September 14th 2001 about meeting with one of the money men behind 9/11, the head of the Pakistani ISI, his General Mahmoud Ahmed, who he said was either the first or the second most powerful person in Pakistan. Okay, now he's not the only guy that met with him. We're talking about on the morning of 9/11, he meets with Bob Graham and Porter Goss. They're the initial congressional investigation. Porter Goss ends up becoming the head of the CIA after that. He was meeting with people like George Tenet, who were the head of the CIA at the time. He met with Condoleezza Rice. So this guy who wires Muhammad Atta $100,000 through a third party, Omar Saeed Sheikh, we'll get to that in a minute, is in D.C. as the attacks happen. And then in D.C. after the attacks. And Joe Biden's meeting with him. And then Joe Biden goes on the Senate floor and talks shit about Pakistan and says they better do what, it's in my film, Fabled Enemies, go check it out. They better do what we want. They pretend to be our friend. He says they pretend to be our friend, has some very difficult decisions to make.
Wow.
So then my man Luke, at the 2008 primaries at the debates, goes and confronts Biden about it. He says, you met with him. And he's like, he doesn't deny it. He looks up, his eyes go up, and he goes, well, we did not arrest Khrushchev when he came. So he goes back to Cold War Russia times. And I'm thinking, that's not 9/11 funding. Okay. And that's, about 7 years after, maybe 6.5 afterwards. So he answers it. And then he tells Luke to get a life. Okay. Because that's a real question. He gets him the second time and he just says, that's classified. I can't talk about it. Now, as crazy as the war on terror is, Omar Saeed Sheikh, who is the middleman, the funder of basically money from the ISI, the guy that Biden met, this guy, Muhammad Atta, that man was convicted of the first beheading video. So before we were all in fear of ISIS drowning and burning and beheading, there was Al-Qaeda, and you had this guy named Daniel Pearl. Daniel Pearl was a journalist. He was an Israeli, and he wanted to find out the funding between these things. They made Daniel Pearl basically repudiate Israel and Judaism and his faith, and then they fucking cut his head off on tape. Omar Saeed Sheikh was fucking convicted of this. They held him for quite some time. Just last year, Saudi Arabia exonerated him, and just 2 weeks ago, so did Pakistan. That guy's not in jail. What are you talking about? What is going on? How is nobody on the right talking about that association with Biden, 9/11, and the funding? If there's any reality, it ain't a conspiracy theory, folks. Anybody can, please, Fabled Enemies for free on my channel, section on Biden, section on Pakistan. It's the real deal. I sent it around. No one in the mainstream wanted to touch it. Not your Glenn Becks, not your Tucker Carlsons, nobody.
Wow. Jason, you're very knowledgeable. Yeah, raising a lot of points that I'm hearing about these things for the first time from you, which is like, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. But I really thank you so much for coming on and sharing what you know and your firsthand accounts of what went down yesterday. And other than what you mentioned, where can people find you, follow you, check out your work?
So it is at Jason Bermas, Bermas on Twitter. That's where you get a feed of most of my stuff, and even my YouTube channel will get retweeted there. YouTube.com/InfoWarrior. But once they kick me off all the major platforms, which probably is coming during this next administration,
I'm worried about you getting assigned.
You got to come over to Rockfin. You got to come over to Rockfin too. I will give you the way in, because it's the way to go. Because number one, they don't let everybody in. You have to pass through a process. Oh. It's not just free thinking media.
I'll do whatever.
You don't have to send nudes. It's not like that. But what it is, it's a platform that has empowered me instead of enslaved me through technology. It actually lets me produce content live. I get to live stream from there, and they do not censor. So rockfin.com, create the free account. I go live. Usually I'm in DC right now at 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and exclusive because sometimes it's a little too spicy for YouTube. If it's not, I'll cut some stuff up and I'll throw it on YouTube later. But that is also a place where you can go premium. So if you have a $9.99 a month membership and you say you endorse me, right? But you guys are on there, it gets everybody's content. So it's like a Netflix for creators.
That's great.
Where you make money via that, and now they can tip you out on your videos. So instead of just super chats, I get texts on my phone, like there's one right there, subscriber retain.
Oh, wow.
I get everything. I know how many subscribers I have. Everything is very transparent, and I believe that this is going to be the type of platform in the future. I was asking whether or not they wanted me to try to get InfoWars on there because they become an immediate target. I still haven't gotten an answer back yet, but if Alex Jones came over there, love him or hate him, the guy's a force of nature.
Yep.
We could increase this network substantially, but at the same time, it would become more and more of a target. But I think it's going to anyway. I think we're all targets, and I think that we all just have to act not only in our own best interests, but our family's best interests. And that is through resistance. No matter whether you think you're left, right, somewhere in the middle, these people will not stop, I assure you.
Wow, Jason, good shit. Wrist Flex, where can people find you, follow you?
The Wrist Flex on Twitter, Wrist Flex on Instagram, Wrist Flex on Patreon, Wrist Flex on YouTube.
And you can,
I'm on other platforms too at Wrist Flex.
And you can both find us
Wrist
on Rockfin, because I think I
I'll be on
signed
there
up,
soon.
but I'm fully convinced now.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this was great. Thank you guys so much. Talk to you soon.
Bye.